I don't know what Bible they're reading, but it can't be the Bible that we're reading. Let's start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahushai, B'Hashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is, what Bible are they reading from? And this is centered around a lesson that Elder Apostle Tar put up yesterday. Give me your feedback, Israel. I wanted to do this lesson last night, but it didn't happen. So I'm just pretty much looking at it as that's, it's the spirit, because I was able to look into it a little bit more, which we've done lessons on this before, but I'm glad I got a chance to look into it a little bit more so I can put a couple more precepts together to go into this lesson. This is a simple breakdown. Nothing complicated about it. There's no it's not parabolic, it's not there's no super deep, dark, hidden mysteries in this, chapter in Genesis. Then the individual you see in the purple garment is Elder Banyamyan, and he's saying that the scripture in Genesis 15 and the scripture in Acts 7 are two different time periods. He's saying the one in Acts 7 is speaking about, ancient Egypt, but the one in Genesis 15 is speaking about America. And that's something that's been taught, by a whole bunch of individuals out there, different Jakes out there, and you have Israelites that hold on to that false prophecy. Here it is, 2022. It's June 2022, the last day of June 30th, 2022. The year of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai turning up, and people are still holding on to that, which was supposed to be fulfilled in 2019. But now notice nobody will call them false prophets and call them out about it and keep asking them about, what about the 400-year prophecy y'all spoke about? From 1619 to 2019, how come that ain't come to pass? They ain't going to come after them and call them false prophets, But anyways, be it as it may, Lord's will, we're going to get into some precepts dealing with that whole ordeal. And Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, it'll be edifying. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so let's get into it. Genesis 15. We're going to read the point, hit a couple of points off of that, and then jump around in this and other chapters, And like I said, Lord's will, it'll be edifying. And it could all come together because, when you're dealing with the scriptures and you're dealing with breakdowns especially, you gotta have to go from one precept to another, line upon line, here a little and there a little, precept upon precept. So, we're going to go in the spirit, and Lord's will, it'll all come together. So this is Genesis 15:13. And he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs. That's dealing with the seed of Israel. And shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Right? So they're saying that this is speaking about America. But it's not. Now, let's go to the link up in the book of Acts 7 and 6. It says, and the Most High spake on this wise, that his seed, whose seed? Abram's seed, we just read about Abaram, should sojourn in a strange land, and they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years. So right there, just off of these two precepts here, we should be able to close the book and say, well, this right here is the same thing in Acts 7. Stephen was reflecting back to the time where the vision that the Most High gave to Abram, whose name was Abram at the time before it was changed to Abraham, and that 400 years was speaking about Egypt, because when we read here in Acts 7, it's talking about the captivity in Egypt. So what is Elder Banyamim talking about? What are these guys talking about? What Bible are they reading? Because he said out of his own mouth, when you could watch Elder Pastor's video, he plays it back over and over again a few times, just so you can hear it. Genesis 15:13, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs. The land of Egypt was not ours. It wasn't given to us for an inheritance either. And shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Acts 7:6, and the Most High spake on this wise, that his seed, Abram, should sojourn in a strange land, Egypt, and that they should bring them into bondage, which they did, and entreat them evil 400 years. What Bible are these guys reading? That's why I put the comment that I put on the channel says, say it ain't so. Wow. Because the scriptures say that these guys, that they are waxing worse and worse. Just simple breakdowns, they're making them complicated. They're being like Esau pretty much. Because that's what Esau does. They take the Bible and they complicate it. That's why the Apostle Peter said that no prophecy of the scriptures of any private interpretation. So now let's go from there to Exodus 12, and let's go straight to the point for now. And then we're going to jump around like the house of pain. Exodus 12:40, right? It says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Now notice there's an extra 30 years here. We're going to get into that. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. This was the deliverance of Egypt, spoken of in the vision given to Abram in Genesis 15, and the speech given by Stephen, going back into the history to bring it up to date, to deal with, to show them that the scriptures all the time, the whole time, was speaking about Yahushua. All right. So now, why does it say 430 years here when in Genesis and in Acts it says 400 years? Well, the reason why was because when the children of Israel went into the land of Egypt, the Lord had sent, Salaki for a minute, I just messed up. The Lord had sent Joseph bound, into Egypt as a servant, because his brothers sold him into slavery. And pretty much when Joseph was there, he was established in a high position because the Pharaoh had a dream, 2 separate dreams of 7 kine, some fat, some ill-favored, I believe of 7 stalks of corn or something like that. 7 were skinny and the other 7 were fat, something along those lines. And pretty much the Lord gave Joseph the interpretation of, what that dream meant or that vision meant. And it meant that there was going to be 7 years of plenteous, and then there was going to be 7 years of great famine. So when that happened, the Lord had set it up for Joseph to be established there because the Lord knew he was going to bring a famine upon the land, and that our forefathers would have to be taken care of. So he put Joseph in a position to where he would be able to favor and take care of his family, beginning with his father on down. And he didn't let emotions, come in the way of that, because he understood, being a spiritual man, he understood that the reason why he went to Egypt before his brothers and they treated him like they did was because the Most High was using him to preserve his family, so that they would be taken care of. And he even told his brothers that, don't worry about it, the Lord sent me here, for that purpose. So he didn't get emotional. Even though by right he could have. So, Exodus 1:7, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. What land? The land of Egypt. Because when you go up above it, it speaks about how the children of Israel came into Egypt with their father, And they gave the name of the different men of the tribes, you know. And then it says, the fifth verse, and all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. All right. So it says, and Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation, you know, and the Israelites kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying and multiplying. Right. So now when we read the 8th verse, it says, now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And that's why they were what? Afflicted. It says, and he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mighty than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to what? To serve with rigor. So this is the vision being fulfilled of Genesis 15. For what? 430 years. Well, actually 400 years, because the first 30 years, you know, they didn't go through that because of Joseph. But then when the new Pharaoh came in, he didn't acknowledge Joseph's authority. He didn't acknowledge our forefathers back then. So they put us into captivity. All right. So I don't know what Bible these guys are reading, but it ain't the Bible that I'm reading. So let's go to Galatians 3 and 17, just to build on that. And this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of the Most High in Yahushai, the law which was 430 years after, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect. Why? Because after we came out of the land of Egypt, that's when the Lord gave us the law, statutes, and commandments through Moses. Not before, because while Jake was in Egypt, they were serving the Egyptian idols. They weren't serving the Most High. It wasn't until Moses brought the children of Israel out of Egypt that the children of Israel had to start worshiping the Most High, and he gave them the law, statutes, and commandments written down for us to follow, the Sabbath included. Okay? So I just wanted to make that point, you know, since it was in there. Now let's go back to Acts. All right? Let's go back to Acts 7. Now let's start. Matter of fact, let's start at the first verse. It says, then said the high priest, are these things so? Because they were accusing Stephen of, you know, blaspheming and changing, you know, the ordinances of Moses, you know, through Yahushua, which that's exactly what went down. You know, Yahushua supersedes Moses, and he supersedes Samuel. He supersedes Elijah. He supersedes all the prophets that came before. It says, and he said, men and brethren and fathers, hearken. The power of glory appeared unto our father Abraham. At the time, his name was Abram. So the newer brothers, I'm going to ask you the name Abram, as you see here. The name Abram right there. What does the name Abram mean? And what does the name Abraham mean? All right. So it says, the power of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran. Mesopotamia is the land of body, or that body of land between the two rivers of Euphrates and the Tigris. They called it the plains of Shinar, Mesopotamia, you know, the cradle of civilization after the flood. All right. All right. So, and he said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Right? Well, I was really asking the newer brothers, my brother, but father of nations, or actually, I mean, technically, yeah, but not really, because Abram exalted father. That's right. Abba, Ram. Abba is father, and Ram is exalted. Exalted father, right. That's what Abram means. Now, Abraham, let's see. Father Abraham, father of many nations. Well, it doesn't really mean father of many nations. It really means exalted father. All right. Abba is father and Rum, right there. Abba is father and Rum is exalted. Now, it's okay, bro. It's all right. No. I mean, hey, zeal is beautiful. No need to apologize. Now, what does the name Abraham mean exactly? That's that. Now that we got father exalted, Abram out of the way, what does Abraham mean? This is to the newer brothers. So don't worry, bro. Don't worry. Right. Abraham, father of a multitude, which would be Abba is father and Raham is multitude. Father of a multitude. And it's important to know these names. All right. So Abram, father exalted, and Abba and Abraham, Abba Raham, father of a multitude. Beautiful. Now, it says, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country. Now, what country was Abraham born in? That's another one for you younger brothers. What country was Abraham born in when the father visited him to leave that land? And from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Yeah, because in that land they were worshiping all different types of gods. Right, the land of Ur, beautiful. The land of Ur, right, Ur of the Chaldees, which is in the area of Mesopotamia. No, Haran is the place where they actually went to afterwards. But the land of Ur, which is around the area of Babylon, in that area, and you have Mesopotamia, the plains of Shinar. There's another name for it, but I can't think of it right now. But those are the main ones. All right, so beautiful. It says, and from thy kindred, Ur, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran. That came after. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein you now dwell. Right, because the Lord was showing him, giving him a view of the land. What he was going to inherit. After. That's what the Lord told him when him and Lot split. The Lord told him, look every which way. All this land that you see, I'm giving it to you and to your seed. All right. And that promise is only to the nation of Israel, not to all nations. Then it says, and he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on, yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession, and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. And while he was doing this and telling this to Abraham, in the midst of him telling him this, right, he said, and the Most High spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years. So as Stephen is breaking down the history, he's summarizing. He's not going into every little detail that was said. He's just hitting the main points of the history, because it was too much to quote every single thing that happened. So he's painting a broad stroke and giving a summarized dissertation, if you want, of the history, that what led to Yahushai and him coming on the scene, right? So when we go back to Genesis 15, we go to the top. It says, Genesis 15:1. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord power, what wilt thou give me? See, and I go childless. And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus. Salaki, let me finish this tea up. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay. It says, and Abram said, behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, this shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, look now toward the heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, so shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of the land, out of Ur of the Chaldees, to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord, power, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, take me an heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another, but the birds divided he not. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. So this is the same history that Stephen is running down and telling those, some of those wicked Pharisees and Sadducees back then, right? And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And this is exactly what Stephen was telling the Israelites back then that were listening. That because he said in Acts 7:6, and the Most High spake on this wise, that his seed shall sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years. Right? Going back. It says, and he said unto Abram, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. So he's repeating the same thing. Same thing. So what Bible are these guys reading? This is perturbing. What Bible are they reading? They're obviously not reading the Bible that we're reading. Then it goes on to say, and the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, saith the Most High. And after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. That's history. And that's exactly what happened. After our forefathers served the Egyptians, and Moses brought our forefathers out of that land, they went 40 years in the wilderness, and after that they started to receive the inheritances, and they were brought into the land by Joshua and Caleb. Right? So reading back in Genesis, right? It says, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. This is what Stephen just said. So what Bible are they reading? Now let's go from there, right? Dealing with the great substance. Let's touch on a couple of scriptures dealing with that. Let's go to Exodus, right? Let's deal with Exodus 6. Dealing with the judgment that the Most High brought upon them and the great substance. Matter of fact, why did I get rid of that? All right, let me just bring this back here because I don't want to lose that. All right. Exodus 6 and 5. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. This is what Stephen is speaking about. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, your power, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. That's what Stephen just said. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, and said the Most High, and after that they shall come forth and serve me in this place. Now let's go to the next chapter over. The 7th chapter and the 4th verse. It says, but Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hands upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. Now let's go from there to the book of Psalms 106, not 106 in part. and 21. They forgot the Most High their Savior, which had done great things in Egypt, wondrous works in the land of Ham, and terrible things by the Red Sea. See? Why? Because that's what he told Abraham he would do. And the Egyptians were putting hell on our people back then. So now, let's go back to Genesis. And 15 and 14. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Now, Stephen didn't mention this part. Why didn't he mention this part? Because he was given a summarized history of what was going on. Because he was trying to get to Yahushua, but he was hitting the main points in the history. Right? So now, when we go to Exodus 12, and we go to the 37th verse. Right? It says, and the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. And the mixed multitude, hold up. I'm sorry, I was supposed to start up at the 33rd verse. And the Egyptians were urging upon the people. Why? Because they had lost their firstborn, that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, and kneading troughs, being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. So what did they do? They pretty much robbed them. It said borrow, but they really robbed them. The word there is sha'al, which means to ask, inquire, borrow, beg. All right. Then it goes on to say, and jewels of gold and raiment, and the Lord power gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they what? Spoiled the Egyptians. You know, because they were going to come out with great substance. The word there is natazal. To snatch away, deliver, rescue, save, strip, plunder. To spoil. The word spoil means to rob. So they spoiled the Egyptians. Because they came out with what? With great substance. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. So this is what? Flocks, herds, much cattle. This is all substance. Great substance. So they came out with clothing. They come out with, with gold and silver and all types of jewelry. And all types of cattle. All right? Great substance, and they baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt. And that's why we still eat the unleavened bread today, because it had to be eaten in haste. Not like you sit down and eat a 7-course dinner. It's supposed to be eaten in haste, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. All right. This is what Stephen was saying, and this is the vision that the Lord showed Abram. And Stephen was speaking about the vision that the Lord showed to Abram, because he spoke about everything that was spoken of in that chapter, but he just summarized it. All right. Now, let's go from there. Let's see what else we got. Let's go back to Genesis 15 and 15. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in the good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Right, because I've heard this stupid statement where people say, yeah, you know, the iniquity of the Amorites. It sounds like America, Amorites, America. I've heard this stupid argument before. You know, that they say that the Amorite, that's really talking about America. That's code for America. No, it's not. Now, if you just said Babylon the Great, yeah, you got it. Nineveh, Egypt, Sodom, yeah. The Amorites, that is not, you know, code name for America. That does not mean America. It doesn't sound close to America. And even if it did, it's not talking about America. Now, let's go from there real quick before we get to any of these other precepts. Let's get Genesis, the 10th chapter. Let's go to the 15th verse. It says, in Canaan, because you had Ham, which had 4 sons. He had Mizraim, Put, Canaan, and Cush. Right? And it breaks down the sons of each one of Ham's sons. Now we go to the Canaanites. And Canaan begot Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusites, and the what? Amorite. So the Amorites here in Genesis 15, when it says, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Because the Lord was going to judge them, but the Lord waited for them to commit all the abominations they were going to commit to kick them out that land. Just like it states in the book of Leviticus. Matter of fact, let's get it. It's a quick one. Leviticus 20 and 22. You shall therefore keep all my statutes and all my judgments and do them, that the land whither I bring you to dwell therein spew you not out. And you shall not walk in the manner of the nation which I cast out before you, for they committed all these things, and therefore I abhorred them, meaning I avoided them, moved them out of the way. All right? And that's the main point. Let's go back. It says, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites, which are Canaanites, is not yet full. All right? And it came to pass, matter of fact, before... Now, you know what? Let's go on. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river Euphrates, which is the same thing that Stephen said. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, and the Most High, said the Most High, and after that shall they come forth and serve me in this place. And the Lord gave them that land. All right? Going back. The Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. When we go back to Genesis 10, we read about the Jebusites and the Amorites, the Girgashites and the Hivites and the Archites and the Sinites and the Arvadites and the Semarites and the Hamathites. And afterward, the families of the Canaanites spread. Afterward were the families of the Canaanites spread abroad. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon, as thou comest to Gerar, unto Gaza, as thou goest unto Sodom and Gomorrah and Admah and Zeboim, even unto Lasha. Yeah, because those Sodomites and all those were Canaanites. These are the sons of Ham, after their families, after their tongue, in their countries, and in their nation. So that's why it mentioned all of these names, because these people were still in the land. And when the Lord gave Abraham that vision was for his people to be in captivity under the Egyptians and come out of captivity from the Egyptians and come into the land that the Lord promised Abraham, and they would take it away from these Canaanite nations. Because it goes back to the curse that Noah put on Canaan, the son of Ham, because Ham looked on his father in nakedness. So now, on his father's nakedness. So now let's go to the book of Deuteronomy 4. and 37. Read a couple of verses here. It says, and because he loved thy fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them, and brought thee out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, because he judged the Egyptians, to drive out nations from before thee greater and mightier than thou art, which are who? The Egyptians, and then move forward to the Canaanites. And that's why when the 12 spies went, the other 10 spies were like, nah, man, they too strong for us. They because these Canaanites were powerful. But Joshua and Caleb said, nah, man, they ready. They're our food. They're our meat, man. They're ready to be plucked, man. Because they were looking at it they were looking at it in the spirit, and the other 10 spies were looking at it carnally. Right? And bring thee in to give thee their land for an inheritance as it is this day. Know therefore this day and consider it in thy heart, that the Lord Yahweh, he is the power in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath there is none else. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command thee this day, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee, and that thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth, which the Lord thy power giveth thee forever. And there was another point. Yeah, let me start at 32. For ask now of the days that are past, which were before thee, since the day that the Most High created man upon the earth, and ask from the one side of heaven unto the other, whether there hath been any such thing as this great thing is, or hath been heard like it. Did ever people hear the voice of the Most High speaking out of the midst of the fire, as thou hast heard and live? Or has the Most High essayed to go and to take him a nation from the midst of another nation? And this is exactly what the Lord was telling Abraham, when he was named Abram. By temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your power did for you in Egypt before your eyes. The same thing he told Abraham, that the Lord will have his seed to be entreated in a stranger's land, and they shall serve them and afflict them 400 years, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. And this is what we're reading about. So I don't know what Bible these, Elder Banyamyan and the rest of these HODC individuals are reading. It says, unto thee it was showed that thou mightest know that the Lord, he is the Most High, there is none else beside him. Out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice, that he might instruct thee, and upon earth he showed thee his great fire, and thou heardest his words out of the midst of the fire. And that's pretty much it, Now let's go to the 7th chapter of Deuteronomy. And this is the fulfillment of the end of this vision. Or should I say of the end of this, when the Lord spoke to Abraham. When he told him that in the selfsame day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. And all of these nations were in those lands. The Kenizzites and the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaim and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites, which were all Canaanites. And this is when it was fulfilled. Deuteronomy 7:1. When the Lord thy power shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the what? The Hittites and the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou, as he told Abraham, that the iniquity of the Amorite is not yet full. So it wasn't time for them to go into the land. So they had to serve the Egyptians until the iniquity of these Canaanites come to a full, and then the Lord brought the children of Israel to take down these Hamites, these Canaanites, to get the land of an inheritance that he promised to Abraham. It's not that hard. And that is the same exact thing that Stephen was breaking down in the history that he was running down. It says, and when the Lord thy power shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, no show mercy unto them. Right. Bottom line. So Genesis 15 is not talking about the 400 years of Genesis 15 is not talking about America. It's talking about ancient Egypt. Just like it's the 400 years is talking about the same thing here in Acts 7 and 6. Just like you go to Exodus 12, 40 and 41, it tells you the same exact thing. Just like you go to Galatians 3 and 17, it tells you the same exact thing in a different way. And the reason why Exodus 12, 40 and 41 says 430 years was because Joseph knew the Pharaoh, and once the new Pharaoh came in, he didn't acknowledge Joseph. He didn't acknowledge our forefathers. So he started putting a hell on our people. And that began the beginning of the vision of the prophecy that the Most High showed to Abram. All right. So that this should have been squashed. We've gone over this many times. But I bet you there will not be no individuals, no Israelite groups that's gonna call this out. But Great Millstone and anyone affiliated with Great Millstone. Which technically they are Great Millstone, they're just not calling themselves Great Millstone. Because all the groups that are out there, to be totally honest, all the groups that are out there that are teaching this word, whatever name they call themselves, they learn from one of the camps of One West. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and your few sisters have been edified. I hope that the lesson was edifying. And to the next time I say Shalom.